Okay, we're here reviewing the investigation that the IDF put out for the Nova Festival. Quite troubling, and there's a lot to go through. So, just starting out here, coming from the Times of Israel report on it, the IDF okayed Nova Music Festival, but didn't inform troops deployed at the border, which means that those who were in the surrounding areas defending the civilians in Israel had no idea that the festival was even going on. You had people that were part of the security teams that had no idea they were there. So when people were out and being concerned about potential infiltrations and things like that, they had no idea. Let that sink in for a second. It's quite crazy. Um, so moving along here, on the morning of October 7th, 2023, more than 100 Hamas terrorists stumbled upon the Supernova Music Festival, an outdoor rave taking place near the Gaza border. More than 3,000 partygoers were attending the overnight rave, along with some 400 staff and 75 unarmed security guards. So people who were in charge, and they had no idea. So people that are there in charge of security with no weapons. So they might be, say, taking a ticket or making sure people weren't too drunk and passed out. They had no ability to defend themselves or defend anybody else there. In all, 344 civilians who attended the Nova party and 34 security personnel were murdered or killed amid the attack, which, according to testimonies, included sexual crimes and other brutal acts. And the terrorists abducted another 44 to the Gaza Strip. As far as it is known, Hamas had no prior knowledge of the party when they launched an attack and happened upon the large festival. And while some in the IDF chain of command were aware that it was taking place, that information was not relayed to troops stationed nearby until it was too late. The probe was carried out by Brigadier General Ido Mizrahi, focused on the military's preparations for the party. Now, it's important to note that there was no real progress or nothing mentioned on the specific lower level people who were involved in the party being investigated. So that's one of the frustrations the families have, I should say. The October Council, representing families of those killed on October 7th, who are advocating a state commission of inquiry into the events of that day, described the findings as at best imprecise and at worst lies. The production company behind the Nova Music Festival said it was grateful that the military had taken responsibility for its failures. Quote, the investigation revealed and verified the extent of the neglect we felt and the magnitude of the failure that emerges from it is multi systemic, shocking, and incomprehensible. We appreciate the fact that for the first time since that day and an unbearable day, an official is finally standing up, taking responsibility, admitting to the failures, and dealing with anger, pain, and difficult questions. Only 31 armed police officers were present at the party when the onslaught began, with the army, stunned by the shock attack on dozens of nearby communities and bases in utter disarray, failing to come to the rescue. The investigation team stated that the IDF failed to defend the partygoers at the Nova Festival, which became the single most deadly terror attack in Israel's history. The investigation found that the IDF did not make any adjustments to its defenses for the party, did not deploy loudspeaker warning systems to alert partygoers of rocket fire, and did not hold any assessment that specifically dealt with the large civilian event near the Gaza border. So when the party received its approvals, allegedly, the IDF kind of rubber stamped it and didn't actually make any adjustments for a contingency plan if, God forbid, something were to have happened with over 3,000 people by the border. This is why on my last episode, when I had Amit Sur on, his brother Adi, Hashem Yikom Damo, was on the border with Kisufim, deployed on a regular patrol. He wasn't given any heads up about a potential incursion, and he didn't know that there was even a party happening. On the eve of the onslaught, after the IDF identified suspicious signs of Hamas activity, the Nova Festival was not mentioned during any military assessments. So when they were giving briefings and encouraging and giving people a rundown of what was going on, they had no clue that this was even happening. So when someone showed up for the base, they're not told, "Hey, be aware, there's a party going on." Additionally, ground troops deployed at the Gaza border on the morning of the Hamas attack were unaware of the existence of the party. The IDF did not also did not place a military representative at the party to be in contact with the police officers who were securing the event. And one particularly troubling fact: on September 29th, the brigade commander, Colonel Chaim Cohen, approved the unity party to take place based on the deployment of IDF's air defenses. On October 2nd, the Home Front command officer and assistant to the head of the production company security team toured the area of the party. They asked for extension. Originally, Avi Rosenfeld and Chaim Cohen weren't sure, and then eventually they did give approval. But again, they didn't tell any of the soldiers on the ground. And on the day itself, at 10:25 a.m., an Israeli Air Force attack helicopter flew by the Nova party after it was instructed to reach Reim and spotted a convoy of pickup trucks driving on Route 232, the same terrorists who had just murdered dozens at the party. The helicopter crew, however, was unaware of the party's existence and had no contact with ground troops there. They decided not to open fire on the Hamas convoy. So even when the Air Force showed up, they didn't actually do their job. And the first IDF troops that arrived at the Nova party were at 11:35 a.m. Soldiers of Givanti Brigade's Shaked Battalion, who were sent there from Judea and Samaria by the commander of the Ephraim Regional Brigade. It goes on and on. Deeply, deeply troubling, completely incomprehensible, and one of those things. It's really hard to even understand how this could be true because of the extent of how off all of the preparations were. So the people that were there in the party were told that it was safe, were told that it was secure, were told that there was a plan. And while the army might have, the army might have given a rubber stamp, they had actually no concept of what was going on. So the civilians there, the soldiers, everyone was sent into this area, and there was no communication one to the other. And the question is are there consequences for this behavior? Is there anything that it's just incomprehensible. The fact of the matter is the people who were in charge didn't do their jobs. They didn't actually secure the area. People got murdered as a result. And yes, it might be embarrassing. Yes, they might resign from the army. But are there consequences? And what are the nature of these consequences? Is there anything that's going to happen, the average soldier would be in massive trouble for not showing up and doing their job. And here on the highest levels, you have commanders completely completely failing, and it's not clear exactly what the consequences are in a real sense. And it gets even more complicated when we start looking at some of the responses from the bereaved families. Hadas Genis, whose brother Yosef Sefi Genis was killed at a bomb shelter while confronting an attacker, told Ynet that the families were asked to hand over their phones at the start of the presentation. One bereaved mother ran to the stage with a photo of her dead son's body and demanded it be included in the presentation. Rachel Moshe, whose son Oz Moshe was killed by terrorists as he tried to flee the festival, said the army was quote unquote lying to families, adding that there are no real answers in the report. I was in a video call with my son when he was murdered together with his girlfriend. Their breakdown of the timing doesn't match what happened in the field. She said specifically, denying specifically that the army scrambled a helicopter to the site. It didn't happen. Senior officers in the army should go to jail. Daisy Moshe, Oz's sister, added, where were they a month before when the surveillance soldiers said there were terrorists along the border? There are no names of the people who approved the festival. We want names, she fumed. And I think when people want to, I think it's owed to the families to at least give them the names and the people that were responsible. Nobody's saying that they wanted this to happen, but it's extremely important that the families are given some semblance of closure, and the people who did approve it do need to face consequences. So time will tell on that, and we will